Okay, good morning and welcome to Just Dafid, Daf Yomi shiur. We're learning Kesubos, Daf Dalid, number 4. We have a great shiur for you today. We're discussing an interesting little known halacha. Shouldn't happen to anybody. You're about to get married. Well, it's done. The groom's father dies, the bride's mother dies. Right? The day of the wedding. Right? What do you do? What do you do? There was a story. Moshe Feinstein had a kollel in Manhattan, and they were learning all the halachas of Even Ezer also. The halachas about Ishus, where Kesubos is found. And he saw that some of the Talmidim had skipped the siman that we're about to talk about today, about the halachas, what happens in that situation. Or one of the parents, unfortunately, dies the day of the chasana. And they had skipped it, and Moshe asked them, he said, "Why'd you skip this?" They said, "No, come on, it never really applies, it's not one of those halachas that apply. We're going to go on, we'll go to the halachas that are more pertinent to everyday life, that we would get asked more if we were abanim." And Moshe said, "We don't skip any halachas." And many years later, not many years later, these guys were not married apparently at the time, and both of these people, when they got married, unfortunately, this situation happened to them, and they were forced to know the halacha of what to do. I'm not saying because they didn't learn it, that's what caused it, but it's just an interesting coincidence. When I told people the story, I told someone the story, they like turned away, like it hurt them that such a terrible incident happened. But it is a very interesting story, and it shows you one thing. It does show you for sure is that Moshe Feinstein obviously is correct. Now, no matter how irrelevant you think halachas are or how little they apply to you, they always find a way to be applied. And if they're not applied directly in that halacha, they're applied in a different halacha. So, check out my shiur on Shulchan Aruch Yomi I give every day. We're doing the Mem Vav, starting in Brachas HaShachar today. That'll become a glare today. Today we're going to talk about Kesubos. Try to give it an explanation over here. We'll start from the words V'bayisema. In fact, 4 lines on the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis. V'bayisema, my machmas onus. The Brisa says, if there's an onus, an unforeseen circumstance, you could even push it off till Monday. You could even push it forward to Monday, the wedding, even though you're supposed to get married a virgin on Wednesday night. What's that case? They baked the bread, fresh bread for the wedding. They slaughtered a nice big cow, multiple cows, many cows for the wedding. Everyone should have their ribeye steak. Vieno mazug, and they mix the wines, right? They mix the wine. They mix cocktails over here, right? They don't usually mix wine. Wine doesn't need too much mixing, but cocktails need mixing, right? Unfortunately, the day of the wedding, the father of the chassan, it's after the father of the chassan, not the mother of the chassan, we'll see. Or the mother of the kala dies, not the father of the kala. What you do, specific protocol, the halacha, you take the dead person, you put him in a side room. It's a chassan, it's a kala l'chuppah. You do not delay the wedding, you let them get married right away. And they're together the first night of the wedding. We know Shivas Mei Mishta. You have Sheva brachos for 7 days. You don't forget the Avelos. After 7 days of Mishta, they do 7 days of Avelos. They're not allowed to be together, even though they were together one time. We'll see why they're not allowed to be together. They have to even be machmir on yichud. They can't be in the same room together. She has to sleep with women, he has to sleep with men. Nonetheless, even though an avelos, you're not supposed to adorn yourself with tachshitin, because she's a kala, they were makel, and they allowed her to put on makeup and blush and things like that. It's only the father of the chassan and the mother kala, right? Generally, the father is paying, is helping out his son with the wedding, and it's the mother who's helping out her daughter get ready. And she want to go shopping with her, helps her find a nice gown for $10,000, custom-made gown. She's the one that goes shopping for all the Sheva brachos dresses and the new purses she's going to need to handle her big credit cards that her husband's going to give her. So only these people, uh, only if that but if it's the mother of the groom or the father of the kala, then this procedure would not go on. Really, what you'd do is you'd gavelis, you'd push off the wedding, gavelis. The rationale behind this is that you're going to lose the meal, right? You're going to lose the meal. You're going to lose the tircha, and you're not going to have anyone else to be toreach, right? He made a meal for the chassan, and the father helped his son. The father dies, it's going to be hard to arrange another wedding, and if the mother of the kala dies, so it's going to be hard for her to get ready for another wedding. So therefore, we allow the wedding to go through, and that's the case of the Bryce that I was talking about. If it's onus, you can even do it on Monday. I don't think it means dafka on Monday. It means, let's say you're preparing for the wedding. The wedding is supposed to be on Wednesday night. It happens, in the middle of getting ready. You're supposed to do toreach basuda 3 days before, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. One of those days, the father, the cousin died, and the mother, the kala dies. They would push up the wedding. They would get married earlier, right? Because obviously you can't leave the mace not buried, so you have to get married right away. And right, it's important that you do a bias mitzvah. We'll explain why in Enoch Ben Sion. That's my Ian shiur. I give 8 to 10 minute Ian shiur on every daf. We're going to talk about how exactly this works technically, because Avelos, the first day, is Del Raisa, and Sheva Brachos is Derabanan. I think L'chulei Alma, the Rush mentions the first day of marriage might be Del Raisa, but most posts can disagree with that. So how does it help over here? How is this mechanism used that you're allowed to do Shivas Mei Mishta when you already buried the person, right? You just allow them to go to have the night of the wedding, they're together, and then you bury the dead person. How could be no way Shivas Mei Mishta, the Sheva Brachos before the Avelos, one's Del Raisa, one's Del Rabbanan. Seemingly the Avelos should have precedence. We'll have to answer that in Enoch Ben Sion. So that's what's going on over here. That's what the Bryce mean. An alternative answer, onus, then you get married on Monday or Sunday or Tuesday, right? Because you don't want to throw out the meal, and you're not going to have the woman. The woman's not going to have someone to help her find another wedding dress. Amar Rav from our papa. Rav from our says, Amar Rav Chisel, Lashana Lashanas and Mayim Agav Basar. The Salach only applies if they put water on the meat. I guess it means they cook the meat. I don't know exactly what that means. Either they're cooking the meat, and right when you cook the meat, it's already in the pot. You can't really sell it. You have to eat it. They didn't cook the meat. I don't know. They're not serving steaks. I guess not. Or it means put the sauce. I don't know. Something with barbecue sauce when they grill a steak. I don't recommend that. Maybe to put water on it. Maybe that would just make it more juicy. But to put barbecue sauce when you grill a steak, that is not the answer. That means you're grilling it well done. You got to grill it medium rare. Don't put anything on. Even salt and pepper you shouldn't put on. I'm telling you right now, the proper way to eat a steak. And if you question this, go look it up on Google. They will tell you the proper way to eat a steak is not well done, even though all the waiters in every Jewish restaurant that I've been to, what do you want? Well done? As they recommend, the chef's recommendation, well done. You ruin the steak. You ruin the taste of the steak. Do not do that. You are ruining your steak. Grill it medium rare. Eat it. Eat the juicy. Let the juice come out. So, but if they didn't put water on agabe basar, they didn't cook it, or they didn't make it moist with the water, mizdaben, you could sell it, and with those proceeds that you could sell it, you can afford to pay for another meal. You can push it off. I'm a Rava, Rava adds, in a big city, even if you put the water, there's a lot of people in the city, you could sell it to some other wedding, right? They're going to have that day. I'm a Rava, Rava says, if it's a small village, even if they didn't put water, they just slaughtered it and they had the meat, the meat they took out of the freezer and they wanted to grill it now or they wanted to cook it now, right? It's not going to be sold, so you have to go through with the wedding. So where does Rav Chisda, when he said he made a distinction, if they put the water, then you go through with the wedding. If not, no. What was he talking about? A place like Masa the Mifka Mikrach or Mifka Mikfar, it's not exactly a big city, and it's not exactly a village, right? It's not like a hamlet or a village with a population of less than 5,000 people. It's not a big city with a population 1 million people. It's somewhere in the middle. I guess you would call that a town, let's say. There's a village, a town, and a city. There's a town somewhere, population between 5,000 people and 1 million people. That's just a rough estimation. So the Gemara says, Tanya Kavasa Rav Chisda, we have a brisa like Rav Chisda. Harei shayapito afuya. The bread was baked, vakasia bread. It was baked in the oven. Mitivcho tavuach. They shechted the animal. V'eno mazug. They mixed the cocktails. And also ma'amak basar. They put water on the meat. You put the dead person, the corpse, in a separate room. As a they go right away and get married. They're together that night. And they have Sheva Brachos. They sleep in separate rooms. Now, Rice is another case of a person getting married. No one's dying. No parents are dying over here. They get married, and before they have a chance to be together, his wife menstruates. They can't be together. They can't even do yichud, even though yichud by a married woman, which is neither is mutter, because the Gemara in Sanhedrin says suga b'shoshanim. Right, people are careful. With the nida, they're more careful, but here they never were together at all, so it's more chomer. So therefore, they can't have yichud. He has to sleep among the men. She sleeps among the women. Either both of these cases, right? She gets to wear makeup all 30 days because she's a kal of 30 days. Makeup, lo yivo, lo berev Shabbos. This last line has nothing to do with any of the previous cases. It's just saying a halacha that you shouldn't be a bias mitzvah or any bia. The first bia should not be done on a Friday night because of chabur, and we'll see on Motzei Shabbos also. You should not do the first bia because of a different problem. Amar Mar, we'll see on Daf Hey what the reason is. Amar Mar, hu yashem ben anashim, v'yeshena ben anashim. He sleeps among the men, she sleeps among the women. Misayel der b'yochen, amar b'yochen, al v'shamru, and avilas no b'moed, al dvarim shevasina noeg. Even though normally during Yom Tov and Chol HaMoed there's no avilas, right? Like you're not supposed to be show avilas. For example, if someone was to die, one of the Zayin Krom dies before the Moed, we know that the Avelis Shiva is cut off, but the Avelis Shloshim does apply. And you're supposed to be knowing Avelis Shloshim B'tzina, where no one recognizes you're doing Avelis, that applies. For Hesi, you're not supposed to, because of the Simcha, the Moed, which is the Rabbim, the Gemara's the Moed Katan, it's a public Simcha, and yours is a private Avelis, so therefore your private Avelis is less important than the public Simcha. So when it comes to privately, you can do it, because you're not ruining other people's happiness. When it comes publicly, you have to put on a happy face and smile and not be knowing avelos publicly. And also, if they were done on the moed, the same thing also, that it would apply b'tzina, but of course it doesn't take effect. The shiva does not start until after Yom Tov. Here also, the regel, the Sheva Brachos is like the moed. We'll see. Ian's been seeing a little more. It's like the moed. It's like 7 days of Yom Tov. And therefore, you're supposed to not be together, even though, right, technically they had a bia rishona and they're married already. But dvarim shel sina, one of the things of avelos is not to be together. One of the isurim of avelos is tash b'shamita. So therefore, they're not together during that time. This Bryce was only talking about where they didn't have bia. About bal ishto yeshena imo, but if they had bia, then his wife gets to sleep with him, right? There's no issue of yichud. They don't have to sleep separately. When he says, the first case was talking about where they did bias mitzvah, they were bias mitzvah porish, so they were boel, and nonetheless we see the Brayse says they have to sleep separately. Kikamar appears in Nishtonida. When Rav Yosef said this, Rav Yosef was talking about only the second case of the Brayse, where they got married, no one died, she just menstruated before they were bia. So if they had bia, then they can sleep together. There's no Isra Yichud. If they didn't have bia, then they have to sleep separately. Or does it have v'chein kasani? It says v'chein, seemingly going on both cases. So the Gemara in Daf Dalet it says hachi kamar v'chein mishapir so isha nida v'lo ba. V'chein, the second case, just like the first case where his wife menstruates, v'lo ba, and in that case there was no bia. Hu yashim and anashim isha shena ben anashim. So that would be the halacha. The Gemara says l'meimer d'avelos kilo leiminida. Does it mean to say that avelos is more in people's eyes? It's more lenient than nida, right? We're more machmir by avelos, right? When it comes to avelos, even if he's boaler the first time, right, and there's avelos hanging in the air, we're dvarim shel sin and noah. They're not allowed to be together. They're not even do yichud. But when it comes to nida, if they had bia one time, so then there's no problem with yichud. Amar Rabbi Yischa bar Chanina, Amar Rav Huna, kol malacha sheisha osel lebayla, nida osel lebayla. Right? We're going to learn later on in the Masechta that a woman is obligated to service her husband in many ways. She can do all the malachas she's supposed to do, except for three things: mzigas hakos, mixing his cocktail drink, vatzas hamita, and making the bags in front of him. What?
Screwdriver. She can't do a screwdriver.
Exactly. What is mzigas hakos? Mixing the drink. You mix one.
Huh?
I know, but I'm saying it, Miziga is the Arvev, okay? What does it mean? What does it mean by yayin larvev yayin? You buy wine from the store, you larvev? No, it means a cocktail. You like that shot? See, people don't know that I give chidushim. I have a separate shiur with Ben Siyam, but even on my regular daf shiurim, my shiurim is full of chidushim that make the daf more sensible to people and to nowadays. So the Gemara says, "V'hatzas hamita." She's not allowed to make the bed in front of him. Harchatzas panav yadav araglav. She's also, when she's a nida, she's not allowed to wash his face and his hands and his feet. So, for all those men out there who want their wife to wash their face, their hands, and their feet, when she's not a nida, she's supposed to be doing that. You also see from here also that apparently, right, it's only because it's rachitza. She's allowed to touch. It seemed like negia would be mutter for a nida with her husband. That would seem from this Gemara. It's only the rechitzas panaviyah the ragla, where it's extra chiba, where it's extra endearment between the husband and wife. To touch him simply would be okay. We don't practice that. We're machmer, even negia. You're not allowed to touch your wife as a nida. Tanya, Avelos says when someone's in Avelos, he can't force his wife to put on makeup, right? To put on eyeshadow, to put on blush. When they're Avelos, these malachos are allowed, even though these malachos bring endearment and bring familiarity between the wife and the husband, and could lead possibly to them being together, which is asr both during Avelos and both as a nida. They allow this by Avelos, presumably because Avelos, the Isser of Avelos, of Bia, of Tashra Shamita during Avelos, only Isser Essay, and by Nida, it's Isser Karis. So you see that Avelos is less chamor, and therefore it's usually more lenient in people's eyes. Whereas Lokash, Kan Avelos Didei, Kan Avelos Dida. It depends who is the mourner over here. If the man is the mourner, so he, when men are in mourning, so men take halacha less seriously than women. Men know a lot more halacha than a woman, but when a woman knows halacha, she can be more machmir in it. So when men, even though he's an avelos, he's attempted to be with his wife, so therefore you have to be machmir in that case. When it comes to her, she's an avelos. When she's an avelos, so then it's more machmir in her eyes, and she's not going to let her husband be together with her. Therefore, we allow certain things. Harchatzis panaviyah the ragla vatas hamita and mozegas lakos we allow when she's a mourner. And our brisa was talking when he's the mourner. So the Gemara says, "Omi shiny baka aviv shalchasan omi shalkalakasan." The brisa talks about both cases where the groom is a mourner and the kala is a mourner, the bride is the mourner. Yasani ashara. No, the brisa was talking about. He was talking about only the first case, right? The imo shel kala was talking about all the other restrictions over here. When it comes to the avelos, right, that only applies when the father of the groom dies. Vatanya, misha meis chamev ochamoso. The Brisa says that if his father-in-law or mother-in-law dies, he can't force his wife to put on makeup, right? She's an avelos. Her parents died. And similarly, if the woman, her father-in-law and mother-in-law dies, even if she wants to put on makeup, because she's not in mourning, or her husband's in mourning, she's not allowed to do it. She, we'll see when she's in the house, she has to be noga avelos. She has to not put on makeup. That's one of the things of avelos. Tani ba'avelos yidei hu yashem ben anashim isha yeshena ben anashim. So you see from this brisa what? Right? You see over here that it's equal, right? Whether the father-in-law dies, whether the wife's parents die or the husband's parents die. So the Gemara says it's fine. We have to fix the brisa. The brisa, I have to say, it says ba'avilos didei, his avelos. But it says v'chein in the brisa. Similarly, means by both when he's in avelos and she is in avelos. When it says v'chein, they're similar. It's talking about only in terms of putting makeup on. We saw it in terms of malachos, right? Avelos dida is more makel by the avelos. When she's in mourning, she's allowed to do those three malachos of endearment. Baha imo kasani. The Brisa says imo kasani. My love imo b'mita. Doesn't imo mean that she's with him, whether she's a mourner or he's a mourner. They're together in bed, so you see that they're together in bed. So you see that we're not so machmir. Lo imo, but even by avelus day. Lo imo babayas. Imo babayas. Ukadamar le Rav Lechia Brei. Rav said to Lechia's son, "Ba'apa no gabelusa, lo ba'apa lo tina gabelusa." He said basically, when your spouse is in mourning, so when you're in the house with them, you should be nagavelos. When you go to the street, you don't have to be nagavelos. That's what imo means. It doesn't mean they could be together in bed. It just means that they, in the same house, they should be nagavelos. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi is a different answer to seemingly, even though our brisa seems to indicate that avelus is more machmir, or more machmir by avelus when it comes to nida. Mikam adamas avelus the hakla avelus the alma chamir. Avelus the alma is chamir in people's eyes. People are not going to be mezalzel. It's very stringent in people's eyes when a person loses a parent or loses a close relative. They're pretty down. They're pretty depressed. They're not going to do isurim. They're not going to want to be together. Avelus tahacha kevin akil rabbanon asil zuzulebe. Here they made kulas over here. So therefore, since they made kulas, the people are going to be lenient in it. Therefore, we have to be machmer. My kula, what's the kula? They said when this situation happens, right? The father, or the chassan, or the mother kala dies, right? So you do bilas mitzvah, and that's the kula. They allowed them to do bilas mitzvah while they're aninos, right? They didn't bury the dead person. They're in aninos. Aninos means until you bury the person, you're in a state of onen. You don't make brachas. You don't do mitzvahs. Right, bias mitzvah, the attachment shmita is not an isser on the onen, it's an isser on an avel. And the avel only starts, the machlokis, either Lezer chasing Pesach Abayis. Lezer says when you leave your house to go on your way to go bury the dead person, then the avel starts. Either Rabbi Yeshua, actually says Yeshua says no, it has to be when you finish burying the person, when you put the cover of the coffin on the dead person, or you bury him, put the monument over there, maybe, because on some opinions, then the Avela starts. So you didn't do the Avela, so it's not a kula that they're both Bilas Mitzvah. The fact is that you do, even after Bilas Mitzvah, you do the Bilas Mitzvah, then you bury him, do the Avelas, and still we say you do Shivas Yemei Mishta, you do Sheva Brachos, 7 days of Sheva Brachos, before the 7 days of Avelas. That's a kula over here. We're going to explore this kula more in Yich Ben Sion, how they were allowed to do this. It's a kula the Rabbanan made, but Avelus is the Oraisa, and Sheva Brachos Mustama is only the Rabbanan. How are the Rabbanan allowed to do this? To be Oker, Avelus the Oraisa, which is an Isser essay, to do certain things in Avelus, an Isser essay, how could there be Oker, Davar, in Yachal, that we don't have Koach, Yachal Kam, La'akar, Davar, Bakum, essay. We learned in Mesachas Yomos and Daf Tzadi. We're going to explain that more in the Ben Sion. Check it out next, coming up right now.